welcome back everyone to the Why on the Buy podcast. If you are not joining us on online, then you're listening to the recording of this book club discussion. And today we are talking about Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I think I can successfully say that it has changed my thoughts around the marketing that I have been doing on my business. And I have a lot of work to do. I don't know if I feel better or worse, but it definitely is incredible. It's an incredible book in explaining the concept of less. You know, oftentimes we're so concerned about how much we need to convey and how much information is going to lend credibility for our businesses. And in reality, we are just pummeling our potential clients with a lot of information that is just not relevant. And I fall into that category for sure.
Totally agreed. This made me rethink all of my branding, and well, not as much my branding, but the messaging on my website. And I've been really working with, my consultants and my marketing people on, what I should be saying. Do I like what's being said on the website? And, recently we kind of said, all right, why don't we just scrap it and do something new for several reasons. But when I think about the copy that's going to go up there in the near future, it's going to be much simpler. It's going to be much more direct, which is the way I like to reach people anyway. I mean, we were just kind of joking about how I tend to talk myself in circles sometimes if I don't know exactly what to say. The clear antidote is just, if you don't know what to say, just say a lot of things and maybe something will come out of it. And I think that's how a lot of businesses will really try to reach their customers. And that's no way to do that. I mean, one of the biggest points that he makes early on is that people don't read websites anymore. They scan them. You look at the top left, you look at the top right, you look, maybe something catches your eye in the middle, and then you look to the bottom left. And by that time, if there's nothing, you're moving on. And, it's beyond making your website mobile optimized anymore. It's, are you putting something on there that is going to grab people's attention? I think about website copy anymore along the lines of junk mail, right? When I go to the mailbox and I have to walk across the street to get to my mailbox, when I go to the mailbox, you've got me for the 30 seconds it takes me to cross the street and get to my recycle bin, right? Because that's where most of that mail is going. And if you can catch me with some kind of copy on the outside of your envelope that will grab me without me actually having to work for it, right? I mean, there are those handful of words that you will read subconsciously without actually concentrating on them. That is how you have to grab anybody's attention anymore. And on mobile, it's the type has to be bigger. Otherwise, you won't even get that kind of engagement. So having someone credible like Don Miller write this and talk about it. And I think it challenges the way a lot of people have thought about what their website and what their marketing collateral needs to be like.
Yeah. I have a couple thoughts, and I'm not a marketer by nature. I've never had to create a website. I've never done much writing. Christy, I'm with you there. It's something that I'm trying to work on a little bit. But what I'll say is I think when you have a website with nothing but words, it's defensive. And I think that you need to somehow defend that you are worthy of the person that's reading your website, and kind of back up everything with a lot of words that tell that you're the expert. And I think that's opposite of what he's saying. I think he says if you have more than 6 sentences, you have too much. Mm-hmm. And we all could take a lesson from that, whether or not we need to write or not. It's almost how you do anything. Is the more concise you are, the more credible your message is.
Yeah. Perfect word to use too, Camille, I think, is that word defensive. It really does. That's what it comes across as. And you're trying too hard. And unfortunately, by nature, you're forcing your potential client to try too hard too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's a great word to use in describing this book.
Melissa, what did you think?
Well, I just, to be honest with you, learned about this book club today, this meeting. I have not gotten through the entire book, but when Christy pulled it out, I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. what I know to be true thus far is the principles of the book are so important. A lot of times when, for example, clients come to us, the biggest disconnect between their marketing initiatives is they say, I can't seem to get the right types of clients. People who are calling me, they're asking, they think I do something else, or they're wanting me to fulfill some other type of service, or thinking that my product will do X, Y, and Z when it doesn't. So that again goes back to the story that you're telling them, and are they receptive to it? Does it resonate with them? So I think that everyone, as I mentioned to Christy earlier, whether you're a small, medium, large business owner, you need to be reading this book, because you need everything. Stories sell, and you want it to resonate with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Don comes back to a lot in the book is this idea that you're not the hero, you're the guide. When you look at story arcs and when you look at the hero's journey, there are all these roles that are being played. And there are, and he kind of says in the very beginning, he's like, my wife hates it when we go to the movies and I tell him, this guy's going to die in 31 minutes, watch. And he's, starts to stopwatch, because story arcs are predictable that way. And when they're not predictable, we don't like them. It's when a story is overly complicated, then that's when you get into cult favoritism, right? And when, there isn't a happy ending, people don't, the Rotten Tomatoes score goes down on a movie when there isn't a happy ending, right? But this idea that you are supposed to guide the hero through your product, your company, your service, your solution, is the one who is guiding the hero through their own story, and everybody wants to be the hero. So what a lot of brands do is, Camille, to your point, it's defensive because they're trying to prove that they're the hero for so many different kinds of people, rather than being the guide for a very narrow group of people. And that is a fundamental shift that, when it's explained, I didn't have a problem, agreeing with that concept, because once it was explained to me, it made a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people who are, especially small business owners, or Melissa, even to your point, medium business owners, large businesses, when you explain to them when you give them the context of why they should be the guide and not the hero, it makes pretty good sense. But very few people think about it that way, because it's not intuitive. Everybody feels if they have a website, they have to broadcast why they're so good. Well, it's not why you're so good. It's how you can help people. And then when you're not very refined in terms of your target, then now you're trying to be the hero for so many people, everything gets lost in the message. But the idea that you're Yoda, not Luke Skywalker, and everybody here except Camille gets that reference, we can, appreciate things from a different level. At least those of us who've seen Star Wars.
I also would say, Jeff, to that is, I was happy I made it to chapter 15, because as I was reading through this, my current perspective cannot be that I'm the hero or that my clients are the heroes. Right now, it's an internal client base that I'm trying to figure out how I can reach.
Melissa, is that noise coming from your office, you think?
I'm sorry.
That's
Our
right.
floors are squeaky. I'll mute
it. Got it. I was like, I'm not sure where that's coming from. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So my current challenge is trying to have a message that I'm creating resonate internally before I move it to an external facing audience. And I was happy that chapter 15 tackled how to become kind of the culture cheerleader, if you will, and how to apply the principles, because no matter what your perspective is, they're going to apply. It doesn't matter if you're mowing the lawn or if you're, creating a global brand. I think the 7 stages and the 7 elements can apply regardless. But chapter 15 was really interesting to me, because this is exactly what I need to do. And I can create a brand story around what I need to accomplish with our internal people before I even need to test it externally. And I'm literally in the midst of it, which is why I'm telling you, you guys are follow me around or something. But anyway,
Wait till you hear what the next month's book
is an interesting application, because you don't need to be an externally facing copywriter and website builder. You can apply this no matter who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's basic communication techniques, right? It's putting the audience at the forefront of that story. Yeah, that's huge.
Well, and I've always said it's not about me, it's about them. And finally somebody's telling me why I think that. And it's putting words to my way of doing things. And which is why I think it's, like you said, Jeff, it's brilliant, but the most simplistic, most brilliance is simplistic by nature because it's something everyone can understand.
I mean, when something's so complicated that you can't get your message across to anybody, how effective is that message? I mean, how effective is a message that no one can hear? You know, and I just am reminded, I mean, Seth Godin wrote a book a long time ago called All Marketers Are Liars. And the book, when it was republished, was retitled, and that's actually, you know, it's they struck through liars and said all marketers tell stories, and because that was the point he was trying to make it, you know, trying to get across, and he was trying to sell books, so that's why he said all marketers are liars. But it's funny because there's a picture of him with a Pinocchio nose on the front of it. I've got it back here somewhere. I should probably grab it, but
I've seen it.
The idea that that's what we're doing when we're selling, when we're marketing, when we're talking about something, we're telling a story. And that's not a foreign concept, but to put it in such concise terms is really, really special. And then to be able to go through the nature of a story arc and identify each stage and say, yes, this and this, these are the main characters. And within the first 9 minutes, you have to have a really clear identity of who the hero is and what they need to accomplish. And you need to create some tension as to whether or not they will accomplish that. Who's going to help them? There's always someone who comes in to help them. And then, you know, in more complex stories and storylines and screenplays and things, there are helpers to helpers and guides to guides. And, you know, it can be very multidimensional, but the elements are all there. And I come back to, you know, everything that we read, everything that we see, if you digest anything on the internet, it's this nuance, this complexity, this framework, this whatever it is. And it is very easy to be misled into feeling like you need to be more complex. You need to do this stuff that very few people can understand. Like that is the way that you separate yourself, by being busier, by being better, by being more complicated. How about just being able to speak to an audience in a way that they will hear you? Well, how do we relate that back to the stories that we've been told? Listen, the little golden books that we read as kids have story arcs to them. It doesn't even need to be a movie with 110 minutes of screen time. Sometimes it's a 4-minute, you know, PBS Kids cartoon that, you know, comes on in between shows or whatever that my kids are watching, or now it's on Netflix, right? But it's, you know, these goofy little things that even without words, people can understand. And I think about, you know, I've got young kids, so I think about Pixar movies a lot. And the very beginning to Up, you know, you've got this couple that they're young and they find each other and they get married and the wife gets sick, and then you've got this curmudgeon old man and he's got these unfulfilled dreams, but there are 0 words in the first 6 minutes of the movie. And the Pixar people found a way to tell a love story in 6 minutes with 0 words. You mean to tell me that your website can't sell anybody anything? Come on, there's a way. We just got to figure it out. And I think this book gives a lot of context to that.
So why is it so hard? So, you know, I've had this conversation all the time with small business clients, and the concept of you are not the hero of the story, everyone gets. I don't think anyone really intends to paint themselves as a hero. But even when they try to go back, I mean, I've coached clients through this, even when they try to go back and rewrite it with the customer as the hero, it still ends up coming out differently. So why is it so hard to do this?
Blunt spears, Christy, to borrow your term.
There is no tip of the spear. Is that what you're saying?
There's none. You know, and yeah, I've kind of been, gosh, the timeline's a little fuzzy, but I think more or less I've been operating my business for 3 years, and I'm only sharpening my spear at the moment, right? I mean, the tip, my one-liner isn't even fully fleshed out yet, except for, you know, recently I was talking to someone and they asked me what I did. And I said, you know, I help companies design and implement their sales strategies. That's really what I do. And that could be better. It could be polished a little bit, but even, as of a couple of months ago, I was like, well, what do you want me to do? That's not a good answer, right? You can't put that on the website. What do you want me to do for you today? Yeah. I want you to direct me to someone who can actually help me is what I want you to do. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's that, especially in the small and even in the medium-sized business space, we've seen larger companies lose their way and get confused over what it is that they really do. Mm-hmm. I think most small businesses, especially when they get started, they're not clear enough on what it is they can do better and differently than anybody else. When you're a startup, you need to prove that you can play. That means that you start out by comparing yourself to the current larger players in your industry or in your space. And to say that you are just like everybody else does not help you differentiate yourself. And if you can't differentiate, you can't sell. So if, you just say, we're just like everybody else, except we're smaller, except we're cheaper, except we are, more personal. You know what though? I will give up personal if it means that I'm going to get, dependable results, right? So, you bring other factors into play there. So you start out and you want to prove that you're as good as everybody else. So you tell people you're just like everybody else. You haven't spent any time really, distilling down what it is that you can do that nobody else can offer. And that's a very difficult exercise. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, and because it's difficult, it's scary. And it requires you go out on a limb that a few companies are willing to go out on. So what do people say? Well, how do you get most of your business? Well, it's not through website. It's not through your branding. It's through word of mouth, because finally someone, your customer, can distill why it was that they bought and then give a compelling message to somebody else. So I think what you need to do after you get a few customers is ask them specifically why they buy. And then that actually goes to inform what your message should be. And then you can be much more direct with it.
Yeah. I would argue it requires you to come in on a limb, not go out on a limb. Like, you need to have an introspective view of why you are different. So it's back to the Can't Buy Me Love analogy. And he didn't want to be different. He wanted to be like everybody else because he thought that's what he needed to be to get the girl. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the girl has seen all the people that look the same. It's the, what was the name of, well, anyway, there are a few other analogies. Actually, there's a lot of other analogies. But I think once you can pull out what differentiates you, which is exactly how you sell anything, you have to do that. You have to commit to the process of understanding what it is that does differentiate you. Not how you're like everybody else, but how are you different?
Well, and that's what I mean. Then you got to go out on a limb and you got to stick out and you got to say it.
But you have to come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. Your clients can't tell you that. They can tell you why they bought from you, but you need to know, you need to be able to identify when they're telling you something that it is the differentiator.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think there's that fear of, oh my gosh, am I going to walk away from an opportunity? Mm-hmm. Is there something I don't know? And that's, there's an element of, no, but I can do all of these things. And I've had this conversation with clients before too, where it's like, I get it. I know you can do all of this, but you need to pick, you have to choose, and then you have to dive deep, and then the rest of it will come. You have to trust that the rest of it's going to come by focusing in on the detail. And I think that's the leap that's hard. That's where it feels like you're going out on a limb. And maybe, Camille, you're right. Maybe it's because you haven't done enough of that introspection to understand what really does differentiate you.
Right.
Well, I think back just a couple of weeks to when Pia Silva was a guest on our show. And I would remember listening to that episode when I was in Milwaukee.
One of my favorite books ever, by the way.
It's a great book. And it goes kind of hand in hand with this. The books don't compete with one another, certainly in their philosophies. But, she mentioned in that episode, she said, I don't list everything that I do on my website. Well, there's a revolutionary idea. That's really not that revolutionary. She's like, just because it's not on my website doesn't mean I don't do it. But if I put everything I do on the website, one, I'll attract the people that I really don't want to work with, because there are things I will do for current clients because I can that I don't necessarily want to lead with other people. But it also dilutes the message. So when, she says, yeah, there's a lot of things that I'll do, but I don't list that there. The more you can remove, the clearer your message will be. So when you get back to that spear being blunt, well, it's blunt because there's so much that's trying to be at the edge, right? But if you can lead with something that's razor sharp, and then once people are attracted to that, they begin, you're filtering the kind of people that you're able to work with at that point. But that doesn't mean you can't do more for them. So it's, you can expand your services within the clientele that you're working with, rather than throwing so many things out there that are possible in order to attract the widest, breadth of customers. And I think it's getting over the fear of saying you only do one thing, because, well, if I do this other thing, maybe someone wants me for that. Yeah, but the thing you do best is what you need to lead with. And it's very difficult. I'm speaking from my own experience. Very, very difficult to tell people what it is that I do best, because I feel like I'm good at more than one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've asked that question of both clients and non-clients before. And it's interesting how generic, it's, I think I can help women reach a whole different perspective on their lives. I don't know what that means.
Right.
That seems to encompass a whole bunch of stuff.
Which is what they were trying to do. It does encompass a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And it's, instead of saying, you know what, I help young mothers get things under control so they can enjoy more.
Right.
That's much better. That I can get my arms around, and I can say, you know what? I know somebody you can talk to.
Right.
And that's the difference. That doesn't mean that if you've got a 10-year-old, that's not somebody you work with? Not at all. It just means that when I have to think about you, I've only got this many words that I will remember about what you do. And I will remember that part.
Well, it's your one-liner. It's the one line over and over and over and over and over again. And your people, your tribe, the people who love you, they keep repeating it over and over and over again. The more consistent your message is with the more people, the more traction that generates. But if it's too complex, or if it doesn't make sense, or if it doesn't resonate with anybody, it's irrelevant. And I think that's what he gets to. And he's like, what's your one-liner? Yeah. So I started to scour our materials for what our one-liner is. We've got like 12 of them. So they're all really great, but it's like, okay, I realize we need a US website, which we don't have. I've realized a lot of things just in the few days I've been exposed to the message. So I think, it's awesome. So tell me, Camille, so given you're in a new role with a new organization, and you're just coming off of this book, what's the first, what do you think the first two or three things you're going to tackle based on what you've learned? Last week, I was asked to be the global ambassador for a program that's going to be internal. So I don't really have, I can sell right now, but that's not my main focus. My main focus is to kind of get my arms around what we do to become known through our kind of global footprint, and then understand based on all of that how we're relevant in the US. So I'm in the middle of that. And in the middle of that, I'm developing something called a Key Feeder program, which is a list of global law firms that do business in our area. And they want me to lead the internal adoption of this program's rollout. So what I think, my first thing is I'm approaching this, I have a spreadsheet right now. It's several tabs big, and I can now at least put some framework around all of the data to say, okay, the hero here is every center that we have around the globe. And then like, I'm the one who's going to lead you through, or what do we call the person? The guide. I'm the guide. And I'm going to help you understand why it's important for us to all work together, right? And I think from what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of territorial things to address right now that exist in all of these different places. And so I need to figure out a way to get through. And I think the way to get through is to get everybody adopting one line that we can just keep repeating to kind of weave a thread through this project. So that's my goal. I think his productivity schedule, I printed one off the first day I read the book, has been interesting. I always do, what are the top 3 things I want to accomplish today? So it was good to see a kind of a parallel there. I never had a retrospective view on my day, which means what would I have liked to have accomplished that I didn't? It was always just an open box without a check mark in it. So now I can actually write down what I've done that didn't do that disappointed me. And then there's a bunch of other things that I think are really useful. And I have a lot of different methods that I'm still trying to figure out, given this new role, what I need to do differently. And I think this could be one of them at school. So yeah.
I love the idea of the retrospective. I think that's an area where a lot of people, one has a judgment element to it, right? When you think about what you want to accomplish, the next day you look at it and go, well, I didn't accomplish 2 of those 3 things. So now I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So you gotta, there's an element of, what I set out to do, if I didn't do it, was it really that important in the first place? Did it deserve a place?
If it was important and it's 11 o'clock at night, I can probably still get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to write it down. I don't want to write it in that column of what do I wish I'd accomplished. I want to just accomplish it. So I think there's a couple of elements working.
Yeah.
I remember being in nutrition class in college and having to write down everything I ate for a couple of days, and then just to get a baseline. And you're like, or if I eat those cookies, I have to write them down. So I'm just not going to do it, right? So Camille, to your point, like, all right, what does it really take? Am I really going to look myself in the eye, in the mirror, and say, I didn't get that done today? Or am I just going to grind it out and knock it out in the next 5 minutes and get this thing done? So, I mean, it's kind of really almost a productivity hack to be accountable to this list. And it's almost ridiculous because it's just you reading the list.
Stupid. It's like all up here, right? But it's brilliant at the same time.
Yeah.
Camille, if I may interject, thank you for sharing that and all that you're taking on, and that's a new and exciting role, major responsibilities, but that's fun. I just wanted to recommend, if you haven't read already, The Agile Selling by Jill Konrath. It really matches what you're saying as far as being new in an organization, having to ingest so many different new services or I'm not sure exactly what you do, but being new in a role and having to adapt quickly, Agile Selling does a great job at that, and also talks about organizing your thoughts and tasks, and it could give you some great aha moments.
Thank you.
If you'd like.
Yeah. I've heard good things about Jill too. I know a couple of people who've taken some, gone to a couple of retreats that she's organized.
Phenomenal.
She's a pretty impressive lady.
I haven't read that, but I've heard of Jill. I mean, she's all over the place.
Yeah.
And she gets very high marks from just about everybody that talks about her. So, maybe that's our book club for.
I was about to say, the theme for April is the theme for May is all about execution. So maybe that should be our book.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
All right.
Camille, what do you want to read?
What's that?
What do you want to read next?
Well, I'm definitely going to, Badass Your Brand is on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what else is on my list. Kindle, hold on. I've already done Extreme Ownership. I've already done, oh wait, this one's on here. The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. That one was a recommendation I haven't gotten into yet. And then just yesterday, I got another recommendation called All joy and no fun. The paradox of modern parenthood. I think it was maybe a hint.
That was a recommendation.
Did your son give that to you?
It was day one of spring break, and you could tell that I was at my wit's end already. So
Got it.
Nice. I love that. I love that.
yeah.
So, Christy, what do you intend to implement first? What have you learned from this book that you intend to implement first?
So, this book goes hand in hand with a couple of things that I am doing with my business coach, and doing a lot of work on who my ideal client is. So I think there are a couple of notes that I made around my website that I need to modify. And that's probably the first thing I'm going to do is go out and make some of those modifications. My website's fairly simple already. And part of that is because, I'm a bullet point writer. I am not a prolific writer. So, I think that will be my, my first, approach is to get the website a little bit more succinct and on message.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I one of the things that I took from the simplicity of this is that, I'm not nearly as clever as I think I am. And, I always, the inside jokes and just the relations that you have with people and you pick up on language and you make references and, I hang out with a lot of guys who like to drop lines from movies, right? And if you haven't seen the movie, then you kind of feel like you're out of something, but it makes you intrigued, like you want to know more. And the way I've always approached things in terms of my website and some of the stuff I put online is I kind of say something that's a little off the wall. And the intention is that someone wants to dig a little deeper. What I learned is that most people don't care to dig any deeper. They're looking for something. What do you have? If you can't tell me, someone else will. And so being clever in that regard is overrated. Inside jokes are for your friends and your colleagues. They're not for the people you're trying to attract. And, I'm going to be a lot more direct with the copy that I have on websites, with the copy that I put in, or with the wording that I use in, some of my social media posting and things like that. Like there's nothing wrong with being direct. You don't have to be coy all the time. And because people are not going to go the extra effort, or they're not going to take the extra effort to go the extra mile to say, what the hell was he just thinking? Wait, okay. Oh, that's clearly there's something going on there that I wasn't aware of. So now I'm going to go and click on this link and follow, the next page. I don't believe that that's happening. And I think that, I was probably misguided with that. And so that will change, going forward.
Yeah. I went on the StoryBrand website, right after we decided to do this book. And I signed up for his kind of free e-course, which I highly recommend. It's just 3 short videos. And I wrote down a whole host of things to do as I looked at my website. And some of the things, obviously the single tagline is huge. And ultimately that, people respond to certain triggers, right? Are you going to help them communicate better? Are you going to help them make more money? What is it that you are specifically going to do? So for me, I help small businesses make more money, period. And so, and I can do that because I know what it's like to not make money as a small business. And I've come out the other side of that. So, so I know that, this is an area that I can help eliminate a lot of noise for people. One of the other things that he talked about was having a clear call to action on your website, like a 1-button element. And Jeff, you and I've talked about this even with the Why in the Buy website, that there are some elements that are missing that we need to pull in. And what is that one thing you want people to do? Right. What's that one call to action? And what I love about this is it almost harkens back to the book, The One Thing. I don't know if you guys have read that one.
Yeah, I have.
One of my favorite productivity books as well. And it is, stop adding more stuff. It is just one thing. What's the one thing you need to do in order to move the needle. And for a lot of us, from a marketing standpoint, it is, it is truly getting down to that one line, that one call to action in your story, in your website, in every interaction that you have with people. And it is so much more work to come up with one than it is to come up with 10. So, yeah.
But it's also so much easier to do one thing than 10
Yes.
things all the time. And that's,
well, once you're there, it's getting to that one thing. That's the hard piece, right? It's being fierce in letting the rest go, cutting the rest out. He talks about in, kind of scripting or in movie scripts, it's not about putting stuff in. It's about what ends up on the cutting room floor. You're pulling stuff out because it just doesn't fit with the storyline.
And I think it's about placement, right? So once you get it right, don't forget to execute and put it above the fold.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I always say once an email goes below the fold for me, it may as well never been sent.
Yeah.
yes,
True.
totally agree.
Very true. Yeah. Are you putting a lot of fluff at the top?
Well, I pick my favorites literally. Like I have the VIP list, and those are the ones that get opened, which is pretty sad because there's probably a lot I'm missing, but I do occasionally go back through. It's so hard to keep up with email these days, which is why I still phone call.
Well, and you've got your VIP list and think about what it takes to earn that VIP status. And someone's got to earn that respect before they're going to get your attention. That's no different than what you're facing against. There are people who won't open your emails.
Yeah, totally.
And it's, it's kind of instructive there. And I think, and this is going to parallel back to just about the book in general, but I think that there are not enough businesses out there who think about their own activities when it comes to starting or, to communicate with people that they want to reach, right? So, people don't look at their own website and say, would I click on this? Would I take that next step? People send emails that they wouldn't themselves open, but they send them all the time. They make calls that they wouldn't take. And, why would you ever say anything that wasn't worth listening to?
Yeah.
Right. But it happens all the time. And it doesn't pass that snuff test. And there's so many things that I got to get a website, so I'm going to put this up. I got to have some marketing collateral, so I'm going to put this up. I got to make 100 dials a day, so I'm going to dial 100 times a day.
But it's until someone like you says, what are you doing? Kind of shake them and say, okay, hold on a second. I get it. You need to say stuff, but have you ever thought about what you're saying and why you're saying it? No, probably not. So until someone says, shut up. I don't care about what you're saying, but I heard you say this earlier. That's what you need to be saying. Yeah. So I think it is an awakening of sorts that some people just don't realize they need to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it seems like there's a disconnect in the objective too, right? So there is the objective of making so many calls a day, or there is the objective of making a connection.
Wait, are you going back to your Monday musing?
Yes, you think so?
It was just yesterday.
It's only Tuesday. I'm telling you, this spring break thing is killing me.
It's only Tuesday. You've got a few more days. So it is about kind of really getting centered on what is the ultimate objective. It's not about checking off. I made so many prospecting calls today. You prospect for a reason.
Right.
You're trying to do something for a reason. So, yeah.
But again, until you understand that perspective, you'll never understand. Or until you hear that perspective, you'll never understand. And that's why I think I take the process of learning really seriously, and the different exposures I have to the different types of people I engage with gives me a broader perspective. And I can understand then, okay, well, this is really short-sighted. Maybe I'm saying this today because this is the person I'm talking to, but let's be real with what my larger message is and how it's applicable to more than just this one channel. And I think my eyes have been open to, just like you said, I'm never going to send an email I wouldn't want to get myself, or make a phone call where I wouldn't be proud of hearing myself say what I'm saying. So I think perspective is important, and it's hard if you haven't been told you need to think about that. I don't know that it comes naturally, because you've been told you have to make 1,000 dials. okay, well, let me do that. It's back to asking for the rule book. You really just want to be a middle manager, right?
And I love that you said that, because it goes back to our January book club, but the simplicity that is provided. The books that I really respond to the best boil things down to very simple principles. And what that does, in effect, is give you permission to be simple. Let's understand the concept. What is the bar we need to clear? We need to be able to get someone's attention. Well, then you go and you subject yourself to all the noise that you see everywhere around you, and you look at the way that other people are trying to accomplish that same goal, and you think you've got to play that game. Well, if I can say it in fewer words, if everybody's taking 25 words to make this statement, but I can say it in 10, then why shouldn't I? Yet we feel like we have to say it in 26 because that's the way that other people are doing it. But when you boil it down to what your objective actually is and what you're trying to accomplish, and you just find a really unique way of saying it, well, then if that accomplishes your objective, going back to Christy, the one thing. Well, the one thing, I need to get this point across. I can do that very efficiently, and it's really damn effective too. I don't need to do it the way everybody else is doing it because I understand the reason why they're trying to do it. Maybe you do it in 50 words instead of 26. It's not about always doing it more efficiently or with less resources, but it's just the idea that there is a simple concept, and when you can understand the simple concept, you demonstrate your mastery of that concept by how effectively you're able to carry it out, regardless of how you do it. You don't have to do it the way everybody else does it. And I think that's been my biggest struggle in growing my small business. And I know I'm not the only small business owner who runs into that, is there's this way you feel like you're supposed to be doing it. And when you get caught up playing in traffic, you forget that, there is, you forget what you're actually trying to accomplish. And books like this give you permission by reminding you what you're simply trying to make happen.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, I missed it.
I carry it with me.
Oh, do you? That's awesome. Did you miss it, Jeff?
I missed it. What was
it? Be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. That's awesome. All right. So we just have a few more minutes. Any parting thoughts? Melissa, anything you want to share?
Sure. Thanks. I think that we should remember to incorporate the principles of this book into not just the website and marketing materials, but to its core, literally verbally telling stories and crafting those. For example, if you do a lot of networking, depending on the type of association or organization, you might have to tell a different story or make tweaks. So I think that it's very important to incorporate the storytelling in person, not just online or on paper.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
and tell it over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah. What about you? Camille?
Can you repeat the question?
Are there any parting thoughts? Any summaries you want to?
Let's get started, right?
Let's do it. Like it. So
I'm a big fan of getting rid of what doesn't work for me. And I think there's so many different to take to try, and I'm willing to try anything once. And I've tried things that are way more outlandish than the principles that have been kind of given here. And I think for at least this first project that I've described, it's to me, it's a guide that I think will be really, it'll be beneficial to telling the story that I need to tell to get people to come on board, Yeah. So I'm excited about it. And I think that even just a couple of days I've been using the daily diary framework, have been an interesting process. So I'm interested to see how this one all plays out.
Yeah, I like that. I think for me, it's when in doubt, cut it out. Right? I mean, it's take it, get your story succinct, and then pull out more. Just keep whittling it down. So I think that's probably the thing that I'm keeping in my mind, because I always have 100 things going in my head at any given time. So
It's the traffic.
it is traffic.
Mhm.
Yep. What about you, Jeff?
I just don't be afraid to, this is me talking to myself, don't be afraid to keep it simple, because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be complicated. If you understand the simple stuff, then you can keep your execution simple and you can still be remarkably effective. And
Yeah.
that is true for most people. And I just think of the mistakes that I've made, and it's been, trying to be overly grandiose about telling people how I do what I do and what I do, feeling that I'll be exposed for being too simple. Right. But 99% of your success is tied to your execution of the fundamentals. If I can help people execute the fundamentals, and I can help 99% of the people out there, that's still a really big target market, right? And understanding those fundamentals as it relates to branding or storytelling or prospecting or whatever it is, those are the things that the people who get it will really appreciate it. And if they don't, they're not for you. That's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's true. And keeping it simple works.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
And
I
tell
love
a
it.
story that we're all used to hearing. And I think that I just wanted to bring it all the way back to the beginning. Like, this is a framework and an architecture that we all know. My kids know. They're little and they know how a story's supposed to go. And if it doesn't end right, they're weird. They don't like it. It's really strange. So it's ingrained into us. Let's not try to get away from what makes us who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a wrap, guys. I mean, this has been been a great book club discussion. We have not decided what our next book club our next book club book will be. So we will make that announcement on one of the future episodes of the Why and the Buy. And we will make sure that you guys are aware. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Nice meeting you too.
Yes.
And everybody. I think Warren
Yes.
left, but it was good having him listen.
Yes, absolutely. We lost Warren at some point, but that is okay. Camille, thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. We really appreciate the engagement. And if you are watching this through the newsletter link, come join us. This is meant to be for you. So we want to have you engaged. And if you haven't read the book, still come join us. There's a lot you can learn, and there's also a lot that you can offer. So, so don't hesitate if you haven't finished the book or don't want to commit to a full reading. I think there are a number of ways. I always download a cheat sheet. I always have a little book summary just in case. So there are lots of different ways that you can come at this, and the discussion is where the value comes. So
if you haven't read the book, then you'll probably get a reason to read the book. So if
That's
it's
right.
a book, if we're reading something, if we're discussing something that you've had any interest in, it's worthwhile to pop in and, just put it on listen, shut your video off and listen into us, or, whatever that is, whatever you want, however you want to participate. There are no stakes for joining us, just your interest in being here and joining us.
yeah, absolutely.
You just got to know your why, Christy.
Yeah, that's right. Because when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You
Happy
too.
Tuesday.
All right. Love it.
It's a great day for a Tuesday.